He had never been a snooper. Phones were private, texts were sacred. Even when the little ping of a notification landed on the kitchen counter, he would smile and ignore it, knowing it was probably nothing more than a group message from her friends or a reminder from the grocery app. He was relaxed in the morning light, sipping coffee in his favorite chair by the window, the aroma of fresh beans filling the small kitchen. The phone vibrated again, and he reached for it only because it slid under the newspaper. The screen lit up, showing her name at the top, Marissa. He smiled instinctively, a soft, contented thing, before the next instinct hit him. He didn't recognize the number that sent the reply. Curiosity pricked at him, small and timid before he pushed it away. But the text preview on the locked screen, he hadn't expected to see it. I can't stop thinking about last night. I know we said nothing would change, but I need to see you again. For a moment, the coffee cup trembled in his hand. He blinked. His brain stalled, running through possibilities, absurd scenarios, glitches, maybe a misdirected text. No, the name was hers. He knew her phone. He knew. He set the cup down with a faint clink and tapped the screen to unlock it. His fingers shook just enough to make the passcode entry jagged, unnatural. The phone unlocked, and he saw a string of messages he was never meant to see, each one more damning than the last. Flustered words, coy invitations, late-night rendezvous. Names he didn't know, locations he didn't recognize, but clear patterns of intimacy he had never shared. For a long time, he just stared, not at the texts themselves, but at the impossible truth. The life he thought he knew, the trust he thought he'd built brick by brick, was crumbling silently around him. She had been right there, in the same kitchen, laughing at him, sharing breakfast, brushing her hair back casually, and he hadn't known a thing. The first hours were a blur. He left the phone on the counter, face down, as if denying it could somehow erase it. He went through their routines like a ghost, making coffee again, adjusting the curtains, checking the mail. But every action felt disconnected, as if he were watching someone else live his life. When she came in, humming softly, and kissed his cheek, he flinched almost imperceptibly. She didn't notice, didn't sense the storm behind his eyes. He forced a smile and nodded. Sleep was impossible. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, he replayed the texts over and over, examining the subtlest hints he had missed. A late-night phone call that lingered too long, a whispered laugh on the phone that didn't include him, the faint scent of someone else's perfume on her scarf. None of it had seemed important at the time. Now it was a mosaic of betrayal. He tried to rationalize, tried to convince himself it might not mean what he thought. Maybe it was harmless, some harmless flirtation. The words themselves, though, refused to lie. I need to see you again. Last night. Can't stop thinking about you. There was no ambiguity here. His stomach twisted, a cold, sinking weight that refused to ease. He became obsessed in small ways at first. Checking her phone when she stepped out of the room, scanning her social media feed for cryptic posts, noticing patterns in the way she smiled at certain friends, laughed at certain messages. Everything was under the microscope of his suspicion, yet he hated himself for it. He had promised he would never be the kind of person who watched someone like a detective. And yet the images in his mind, her at a bar, her texting in secret, the laughter not meant for him, kept him awake at night, pacing the apartment like a caged animal. Work became mechanical. Meetings, phone calls, emails, they all blurred together. He smiled when asked questions, nodded when spoken to, but the words felt empty, sounds from another life. Every free moment was spent in a haze of replaying, imagining, questioning. When did it start? How long? Who else knows? And then the confrontation began. Not the loud, dramatic shouting he had imagined in movies, but in the quiet, slow withdrawal. He stopped asking her about her day. He stopped laughing at her jokes. The air between them grew tense, not with argument, but with a subtle, palpable distance. She noticed eventually. You're quiet lately, she said one evening, standing in the doorway of the kitchen, arms folded, head tilted. Is something wrong? He looked at her, really looked at her, and felt the weight of every secret she had hidden from him press down. He wanted to shout, to demand the truth, to crumble into tears, but instead he shook his head. Nothing, he said, voice clipped, distant. Her brow furrowed. She didn't know what she'd done yet, but he did. And that knowledge, poisonous, intimate, was a secret he carried alone. For the next few weeks, he drifted further, Conversations were short, touch was absent, laughter was hollow. He watched her in ways he would have once called loving, now suspicious. The way she answered her phone, the way her eyes lingered on the screen, the way she sometimes smiled when she thought he wasn't watching. Each glance became a small torment, each movement a question. And in those long, sleepless nights, he thought of the texts again, over and over. I can't stop thinking about last night. The words echoed in his mind like a mantra. The betrayal wasn't just in the act, it was in the obsessive, repetitive craving, the deliberate choice. He didn't know when the obsession began or if it had always been there, waiting for him to stumble into it. But he knew one thing: he would never be the same again. He started noticing the little things first, the incongruities, the almost imperceptible shifts. The way she left the bedroom door slightly ajar at night, a door he knew she always closed. The way she laughed into her phone while he was in the next room. The way her shampoo suddenly smelled different, a scent faint but sharp enough to stick in his nose. At first, he told himself he was imagining it. Paranoia, overwork, stress. They were rational explanations. But the mind has a way of stripping away comfort when it senses betrayal. Every smile she gave him now carried two meanings, the one she intended and the one he imagined behind it. Work days blurred into the evenings, but evenings were worse. He would sit on the couch, the TV muted, phone in hand, scrolling through messages she'd accidentally left open. He didn't reply. He didn't confront. He just watched. Watched her text to people he didn't know. Watched the timestamps. Watched the subtle hints that she thought he wasn't paying attention. Each message was a tiny dagger, each one slicing a little deeper into the veneer of their life together. Then came the dreams, terrible, vivid dreams that made his chest tighten even after he woke. He would see her at a bar, laughing with someone else, her hand brushing another man's arm, her lips moving in ways they never had with him. He would wake up, heart pounding, sweat damp against his skin, and feel the unbearable clarity. Even in dreams, she belonged to someone else. He began leaving notes for himself, jotting down details he didn't want to forget, times, locations, snippets of texts. Each note was both a record and a small ritual, a way to feel like he still had control. He didn't show them to anyone. He couldn't. He was trapped in his own mind, trapped in the silent theater of suspicion he had built. And still, he acted normal. In public, at work, even at home. He laughed when he was supposed to, answered questions, participated in conversations. No one could see the storm that churned beneath his skin. She remained oblivious, or at least she hadn't confronted him yet. That ignorance was a cruel kind of mercy. He hated her for the deception, but he hated himself for the obsession that the deception had spawned. One night, finally, he couldn't bear it any longer. She had been texting someone on the couch while he was in the bedroom, the soft glow of the phone illuminating her face. He waited. He watched her fingers fly over the screen. He swallowed, heart hammering. And then he spoke, voice low, cautious. "Who are you texting?" She looked up, startled, almost hurt. "Oh, just a friend. Why?" "Which friend?" The words came out sharper than he meant. He felt the sharp pull of panic, like he was dangling over a cliff with only the rope of his composure keeping him from falling. She frowned, a crease forming between her brows. It's nothing, really. Just someone from work." But her eyes flicked away, almost imperceptibly. Almost. That tiny flicker. He saw it. It was enough. His chest tightened. "I saw the texts," he said finally, voice quieter now, dangerous in its stillness. Her hand froze. She looked at him, confusion, fear, and something else, something guilty flashing across her face. "I don't know what you mean," she said, but it was fragile, teetering on the edge of truth and lie. "No," he said, shaking his head. "I know exactly what I mean." He set the notes he had written on the counter. The tiny evidence of his sleepless obsession laid bare. Her eyes widened as she scanned them. Each one was a timestamp, a phrase, a record of betrayal. She opened her mouth and then closed it again. It's complicated," she whispered finally. Complicated. That word hit him harder than any betrayal could. Not a denial, not a confession, just the soft, evasive word that somehow demanded patience he didn't have. For the next days, the apartment was suffused with tension. He avoided her gaze, but he also watched her. Every movement, Every glance, every laugh or sigh became a carefully studied signal. He oscillated between rage and grief, between wanting to throw everything into the air and crumble into himself. At night, he began taking long walks, wandering the city streets in the dark, letting his mind spin. He replayed the texts, imagined conversations with her, rehearsed confrontations that never happened. He wanted clarity, but clarity was a cruel mirage, slipping further away every time he reached for it. When she tried to reach out, to talk, to apologize, he recoiled. Words meant nothing now. Actions were everything. He noticed her attempts to be kind, to reconnect, but he couldn't accept them. Not yet. Not until the questions that burned inside him. How long? With whom? Why? Were answered. He began to question himself too. Was he imagining some of it? Was he too paranoid, too fixated? The lines blurred. He saw betrayal in shadows, in smiles, in words that might have been innocent. He hated himself for it, but the hate never overcame the need to see the truth, to understand the depths of what had been done. One evening, weeks after the first discovery, he found her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. He knew he shouldn't, knew that trust had died somewhere in the intervening days, but he picked it up. And there it was, another message, another invitation, this time more explicit. He sank into the chair, trembling, mind spinning. The slow burning realization wasn't just about her anymore. It was about him, about the transformation he couldn't stop, the obsessive need to confront, to witness, to catalogue. This wasn't going to end in calm conversation. He knew that now. The confrontation came on a Sunday afternoon, quiet, grey, heavy, with unspoken tension. He had spent the morning staring out the window, listening to the wind press against the walls, feeling the weight of the past few weeks coil around him like a living thing. He didn't speak. He barely moved. She moved around the apartment as if nothing had changed, but he could see it in the way she paused, the way she glanced at him out of the corner of her eye, the way her hands fidgeted when she thought he wasn't watching. Finally, he called her into the living room. His voice was calm, almost terrifyingly so, the kind of calm that promises nothing will ever be the same. "We need to talk," he said. She hesitated, the polite facade cracking. "About—" He gestured to the phone on the coffee table. She swallowed hard, but didn't pick it up. Her silence said everything. He took a deep breath. "I know everything." The room seemed to shrink. She looked around as if searching for escape routes that didn't exist. I can explain," she said finally, voice shaking. He felt a strange, hollow part of himself rise, the part that had catalogued every text, every timestamp, every whispered secret. "Explain what?" "That you've been lying to me, behind my back, while I trusted you completely." Her eyes filled with tears. "It's not what you think. I didn't mean to hurt you. He cut her off. "You didn't mean to hurt me. That's the excuse? You were careful, calculated, planning, hiding, texting, lying, and you think it's just a mistake?" She flinched, and he saw it then, the smallest crack in her armor. Her guilt, her shame, the fear, and yet she tried to justify, to soften it. "It wasn't serious. He's not important. It was a mistake, a moment. I love you." Her words collided with him like stones thrown into glass. They shattered in his chest. Love. Love had nothing to do with deception, with his secret nights, the hidden lust, the intimacy that didn't include him. He sank into the couch, burying his face in his hands. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The apartment was silent except for the muted tick of the clock, the low hum of the radiator. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red-rimmed, hollow, haunted. "I don't know if I want to trust you again," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even know if I recognize you anymore." Her sobs filled the room, sharp and raw. "Please, we can fix this. I'll do anything. I swear." But he knew some things couldn't be fixed. Trust, once shattered like glass, doesn't reassemble neatly. It glints and cracks, leaving jagged edges that cut even when handled carefully. He had catalogued the betrayal in every way possible. Texts, timestamps, imagined scenarios, and even now, he couldn't unsee it, couldn't unfeel it. Days passed in a fog of quiet despair. They existed in the same apartment, sometimes speaking, mostly silent. His obsession didn't disappear. It transformed. It became a constant, gnawing awareness that hovered in every corner, every conversation, every laugh. She really tried, to reach him, to prove herself, to demonstrate love, but every gesture was filtered through the lens of the betrayal. And yet he couldn't leave. Not yet. Not immediately. There was a part of him tethered to the life they had built, the routines, the shared memories, the echoes of the man he used to be before he opened that text. He was suspended, caught between the life he wanted and the truth he now carried like a scar. Sleep remained elusive. He would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking of every text, every late night call, every secret meeting. He imagined what she did when he wasn't there, what he hadn't caught, what he might never know. Obsession had become a second skin, one he could neither shed nor fully endure. And slowly, inevitably, a quiet transformation took hold. He became distant, not in bursts of anger or despair, but in the subtle withdrawal that was even harder to bear. He spoke less, laughed less, touched less. He carried the knowledge like a shadow, one that lengthened and darkened the apartment around them. She noticed and sometimes tried to reach him, but her attempts only reminded him of the secret that had fractured everything. Months passed. The wound didn't heal, it reshaped him. He was quieter, sharper, endlessly watching, endlessly calculating. And yet, somewhere beneath the cold, somewhere buried beneath the obsession, there remained a fragile ember of longing for the past. A past that had vanished the moment he had seen the first message, a past he could never return to, no matter how deeply he loved her, no matter how much he wanted to believe in us. In the end, the phone lay on the counter, silent now, but he didn't need it anymore. He carried the evidence in his mind, the proof that trust had been broken, the obsession that refused to fade. And as he watched her move through the apartment, laughing faintly, turning her back to him for a moment, he felt the cold clarity settle in. Some betrayals are too intimate, too consuming, too precise to ever be forgiven. He had loved her. He still did. But he would never, ever be the same. And that, he realized with a quiet, unbearable weight, was perhaps the cruelest betrayal of all, the betrayal of himself.